Are we building altars that are to bring glory to God, or are we building towers like Babel that really focuses on ourselves and exalt ourselves?
When do we be still and when do we move forward? I think the premise of that entire story is that God had already accomplished some amazing things. He had showed them direction. He'd given them proof. The first thing that we're called to do when we're in those times of pressure is he tells us just to remember. They should have remembered those miracles. So then the next thing he says, be still. And then, the next thing was to just respond. And the response was move forward.
Even though we find ourselves in certain seasons and situations and circumstances, those things still do not negate everything that Jesus has said. Do we trust that somehow, some way, whatever I'm going through, walking through, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult, no matter how confused it is, these situations and circumstances do not invalidate the Word of God?
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we deep dive into Sunday's message and explore your questions. I'm your host, Aston Kank, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime member of the Orchard or a first-time visitor, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spirituality, and daily life, seeking to understand how the wisdom shared on Sundays can be applied to our modern challenges. So, grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's dive in together. This is Let's Talk About That, where the conversation about Sunday's message never stops.
All right. Well, welcome back into Let's Talk About That. Obviously, I am not Aston. I am your one-time host, but back again, Chip Parker, lead pastor here at the Orchard. And we just got sick of Momcast, quite honestly. So I filled the table with some dudes today.
That's right.
It's Dudecast. Actually, no, we love the Momcast. It was really cool getting to hear moms from each locations. A lot who weren't on the podcast, hadn't been on the podcast before, share some really good stuff. And it was good. I hope you enjoyed it. But what we have going on today is not moms. We have our pastors sitting around the table, specifically those of us who serve at locations. We're missing our executive pastor, Michael, and our founding pastor, Eddie. But I'm here. I got our Branford location pastor, Robert, and our Live Oak location pastor, Matthew. And we just thought we'd sit down and have a conversation about what's been going on around the church and our locations and summer and all that stuff. So how's summer been, boys?
I mean, I don't know. Summer's such a weird thing where honestly in the church life, things seem to kind of slow down. We don't have as many meetings and there's not as much planning because you don't institute things in the summer. You're traveling, vacations, all that. So on the one hand, it's kind of been a good change of pace, but I say this every year and I feel it more and more as we get closer to August. I don't know if it's the type A in me or if I have 4 kids and I'm ready to ship them off, but man, I'm ready.
Okay, no dos.
I am ready for school. I like routines, rhythms. I like to get up at the same time, go to the same place every day. And then honestly, it's kind of nice when everybody's back in the office. You get to see everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
Different energy level in the office and planning and excitement for the fall, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I will say for me though, summer's been weird this year, specifically the month of July, because usually the month of July is kind of where I push back just a little bit and take a little bit more time, slow down, try not to do as much content creation and focus on the next half of the year that's coming up. And I did a lot of that this July. It just looked different because usually what I'll do in July, I'll be here a lot on the weekends, but I'll take off a lot during the week and be gone during the week. This year, I took off some time during the week, but actually I took off more weekends than I did time during the week because it's 4th of July weekend with family, my son's birthday. We did a weekend with that. We were with my dad and visiting with him. And so it was weird because I was like working during the week, but then we would go somewhere over the weekend. So I wouldn't be at church on Sunday. And it was just a weird vibe. But I will tell you, it didn't feel for me like this summer slowed down a whole lot. It felt like I kept waiting on it to slow down and it just didn't.
Yeah, this summer was different for us. We came in the beginning of last summer. So it was like, drinking water from a fire hydrant. Almost just trying to get in the mix of things. And then this year it's like, man, well, when we don't have a meeting here, my wife would say, hey, you have a meeting today? And I said, no, they canceled it. Good. Now here's a honey good project. So I'm looking forward. I'm like you. I like routine, Matt, but also like to take the time. But we've been so busy through summer just getting ready for the fall, for what's ahead of us.
Yeah.
And to me, that's real exciting.
I think it's funny to me that everybody who comes to church obviously knows that you don't just show up on Sunday and it happens, that it takes some planning. I don't think most people realize how far in advance we have to plan things in order to pull them off, especially when we're one church in 3 locations. And I would say, especially with the number of new people that are showing up and trying to get connected at the Orchard.
Every week we see new families.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things too that is honestly kind of exciting when school starts back is everybody's back in town, you know. And to me, and I've been here for, 4 summers now, is it's almost like when August hits, it's like you really get to see who calls the Orchard home at your location. And it's kind of misleading in the summer because, even though attendance may dip because of a holiday weekend or whatever, it's really, you don't realize that you're not seeing the same people every single week. And then all of a sudden August hits and everybody's there and it's like, oh my goodness, this room is full and I haven't seen that person in a while and I catch up. And so I think it's just, there's something about August when school starts. I know everybody dreads it, especially if you're a kid, but there's just,
I would say only if you're a kid.
Parents are like, yes, let's go.
but there's just this like excitement in the air. I don't know.
No, I get it. I think, so here's my take. You guys tell me what you think. So I feel like from what I've seen from our attendance numbers this summer is there's definitely been the holiday weekends. There's definitely been like, oh, everybody's on vacation or camp or Bahamas or whatever. But there've been a lot of Sundays that it's just as full as any other Sunday. And in the spring and the fall, whatever. But I look around the room and like Matt said, it's not everybody's here.
Yeah.
There's different people. There's new people. Like Robert said, by the way, I said in Branford yesterday, man, what a blessing it is to walk into church and see somebody you don't know, because there's so many churches that's just not the case. Right. But I think because of that, because we've seen those numbers this summer and then it not be everybody here, I'm telling you, I think this fall, you're going to have some people who show up and everybody shows up on the same Sunday. And I think it's going to be oh, wow, man, look at what God's doing, because I mean, let's just face it. We are seeing God really do some neat things at all 3 of our locations right now.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. It's just that, you see it on Sunday, maybe you guys are like this, but, I'll think of people sometimes and in my mind, it'll be like, oh, it's been a couple weeks since I've seen them. And then all of a sudden you start like, oh, wow, it's been like 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever, you just get caught up in the pace of Sunday and you get, I don't know, I get tunnel vision on Sundays. And so it's like,
no, I get tunnel vision.
I think we all do.
But then when school starts back and then you see everybody at the same time, like you're saying, it's like, oh my goodness, it's just refreshing to see people.
That's the comfort in the routine you were talking about.
But also you see like, you don't realize, oh my goodness, we have a lot of new people who are showing up and then all of our regular people are here on the same day and then the room is full and it gives you a better picture of what is already true, but you just see it all at one time. And so I don't know, it's just every year this happens and it's very exciting.
Let me ask you this, Robert, and I'll ask you this because like you said, you've been here a little over a year now. You've had a ton of new people start, coming into Branford. Matter of fact, I said I was there Sunday. Man, there was a ton of people there. Room was full. What has been one of your favorite things as a pastor kind of introducing someone to the Orchard? Like somebody who comes in, they don't really know what, the Orchard is or what it's about. You kind of get to walk them through that. What's been your favorite part of that?
I think you see me smiling because, most of my life, as far as a ministry, I've been in a traditional setting.
Yeah.
And what we do is just so different. And it's greater because we're making such a larger impact. So being able to talk with people that come in new and they see the Orchard at Branford and they don't even realize that we have 2 other locations and God only knows what else he's going to do. That same excitement, just begins to resonate in them. So that's really exciting to me. And when people always say, well, you guys are meeting in a school, and I have to say, isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Because they don't, on the outside, they don't understand the connection that gives us, an inboarding into the school system to minister there.
Man, I had somebody I was talking to yesterday, and we were just talking, and they made this comment. They said, the reason I'm out the Orchard is because of how much I see the Orchard help our community and do for our community. And I love that because that's what I think we want the Orchard to be. I think that's what the Orchard was designed to be. And so it's cool when you see that happen. Matt, a little bit different question for you. You guys went out on a limb here this spring and started a 3rd service. Now, we started a 3rd service in Lake City as well, but we just packed them all into a Sunday morning. You started a 3rd service on Thursday, and I'm interested. How's that gone? Like, what's that been like in Live Oak?
So just transparently, I was kind of an advocate for a non-Sunday service. It necessarily wasn't going to be on Thursday. That just kind of, there's a whole process behind that. But for whatever reason, I couldn't shake this idea that, hey, as we think about 3 services, let's look at a non-Sunday option, and I've been candid about that. Me, you, Chip, and Michael, we had some pretty passionate discussions, at times disagreements.
Enjoy passionate discussions.
And I think, even to answer part of what you asked, Robert, that's one of the things I love about our staff, though, and our culture is, like legitimately, if people were on the room, they probably would have been uncomfortable at times because, and it comes from the same place. It's your heart for the orchard as a whole.
Yeah.
It's my heart for the orchard as a whole, but specifically how I see things in Live Oak and kind of just navigating all of that.
Well, and I think even beyond that, it's a trust in each other that,
Right.
hey, like we can be passionate about this and not worry that it's going to do anything to the relationship because
Right.
we know who we are or where we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even though, you would ask me hard questions or, even maybe disagree, not in principle, but just, I don't know if this is the best option.
Yeah.
I also knew where you were coming from. And so I didn't have to question your motive behind that. And so it really helped us kind of boil it down. It challenged me in a lot of ways to, hey, is this something that you're passionate about because it's just an idea that is this random idea and it's kind of like this fun thing to pursue? Or is it because like this is something that God's really leading? And it really did. It forced me through those conversations to do that. And man, can I just say that we started this in February? And not that I don't love all
What
of our
has it
people.
been that long already? It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
So we started in February, and I love all of our people. I love all of our services, but there is something special about Thursday night. We strip it down. We don't have a full band. We talked about that ahead of time. That was kind of by design. Thursday night does feel different than Sunday morning. But the feedback that I've gotten from people who have adopted that service and called that service home is that it almost feels a little bit more intimate.
Yeah.
Because, there is a
I wouldn't
lower
say
crowd.
it doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, and Robert, you've, preached there, I think more times than I have. It doesn't feel different in essence. It's just got a different vibe.
Right.
That's a good word.
And we kind of embrace that because we know that Thursday night is different than Sunday morning.
Let's just say you're not rolling in with the same energy level on a Thursday night that you are on a Sunday morning. Probably.
Yeah. You've been at work all day or, whatever that looks like. But the thing that I've really enjoyed about it is, number one, I've said this repeatedly to our people on Thursday, is there have been Sundays, even through the summer, if it was not for people intentionally choosing Thursday night service, we would not have had ready for people on Sunday morning.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the whole principle behind 3 services, regardless of what day it was we want new seats for new people. And most of the time, if you're a new person and you're just randomly going to give Jesus thing a shot or church a shot, you're going to show up at Sunday because that's the traditional time that churches meet. And so there have been Sundays, if it was not for Thursday night services and people giving up their seat on Sunday morning, we legitimately would not have had room on Sunday. And so, we see the effect of that. We see the benefit of that. And I don't know, it's just special. There's a accelerated plan and preparation time to get ready for Thursday. And I think in many ways it's interesting because you feel the weight of that. You feel this almost like panic of you have a big group project due and it's the night before, if you remember back in school.
You say panic. I say adrenaline rush that creates focus.
But there is this like pressure and adrenaline, but it's cool because when I come on Thursday night, I feel so prepared because all I've done Thursday is like think about this message. And so there's like a freedom in that. There's a passion in that. So man,
It probably makes Saturdays a little bit easier for you as well.
it's honestly kind of nice because Saturday feels like a Saturday, and I feel like I can relax and we can do things as a family. I don't feel like the weight of, man, about 3:00 on Saturday, you're locked in on Sunday morning, and you're thinking about your slides and your notes and all that stuff. So it's been really cool. And the other thing I'll say is this, is not only have we had people who have adopted it, we have had some people who they come on Thursday just to prioritize worship.
Wow.
They're going to be out of town on the weekend because of a sporting event.
I think that's
or
one
a
of my favorite
vacation,
things.
a holiday weekend. Honestly, one of our biggest Thursdays of the summer was the weekend of 4th of July. And it's because people are like, hey, we recognize the holiday on Friday. We're going to be gone Saturday and Sunday. And we saw an influx of people on that Thursday. And it's just a way for them to say, man, I don't want to miss. I want to be a part. I want to hear, the sermon series. I want to be in community. I want to worship together. And so, man, it's just been really cool. The response of our people. I was honestly nervous because I kind of passionately, vouched for this and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. And that first Thursday, I was like, oh my gosh, what if nobody shows up?
I think if you've ever done something like that, whether it's start a service, plant a church, do something different as a pastor, there's like that moment where you're looking out the door like, is anybody going to come tonight? Is anybody showing up?
When I was there the last Thursday, I was like, nobody's coming. They know Matt's not going to be here. And literally like 5 minutes before, it was a parade of people, 100 people there. I was blown away.
I will say that, and I've kind of learned that. But
that more people showed up because they knew Matt wasn't there? Is that what you're saying?
I was wondering.
Okay.
Matt's not going to be here. We're taking a Thursday off.
No, I will say about Thursdays is don't get your hopes up based on 6:30.
That's right. That's a good word.
If nobody's there at 6:50, you can start to panic.
That's right.
That's funny.
It's cool. But a lot of people, they get done with the work, they go out to eat, they come straight from eating. And
you said the heart behind it. And it's the reason why we went to 3 services on Sunday morning in Lake City is we need new seats for new people. And I don't have any problem saying this now because I think it's going to be something that we spend the next half of the year talking about a little bit more. Man, we understand that we are feeling a facility crunch at all 3 locations, probably for different reasons at all 3 locations, but we're feeling it. And I want you to know, if you're listening to this and you attend the Orchard, we're aware of that and we're working on it, and we see some things God's doing that we're going to be able to share maybe a little bit more this fall about, how things are lining up. But it is happening, and it's encouraging to see that because we don't want to take the Field of Dreams model to facilities. You build it, they'll come. We want to say, no, God's growing. We've got to do something to accommodate this growth. And that's what's happening. And, one of the things that Pastor Eddie instilled in the Orchard when he founded is the idea of the trellis and the vine. The vine is the point. The vine is what bears fruit, and the vine is the people. However, if you don't have a good trellis to support it, systems, structures, facilities, then the vine can suffer. And what we see in so many churches is they love the trellis. Everybody wants to work on the trellis. Let's paint up the trellis so that it's nice and pretty, but nobody's tending the vine. Well, we want to be opposite at the Orchard. We want everybody focused on the vine, and let's just do what we have to do to make sure the trellis can support it. And to be quite frank, it might not be the prettiest and best painted trellis you've ever seen, but it'll support the vine. And I think that's the point behind it. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about seeing that. But, talking about July and the summer, July was a little bit different for each of us, especially I think for the location here in Lake City, because I stepped back from preaching a little more in July intentionally. So we had Austin Shekel preached for us one Sunday. Eddie preached for us 2 Sundays here in Lake City. He did a little mini series based on part of his Genesis study on his podcast called Altars or Towers. And that was really cool, talking about how are we building altars that are to bring glory to God, or are we building towers like Babel that really focuses on ourselves and exalt ourselves? It's really good, really challenging. But you guys also had the opportunity to take some focused time and really flesh out some messages that God had been working in your heart for your location. So why don't you tell us about those? What was happening in Branford during July?
So I had put together a series. It was a 3-part series just titled Tactical Christianity. I think that's one of the things that we have seen, with tragedies and things happening, and everybody says, oh, God hates me, or the question, why is this happening? Why is bad things happening? So I worked on that. And, week 1, I was going to discuss, how sin entered in and really focus on the tactics of Lucifer, and to me, the big idea was how he wants to attack our mind. And I really hammered in Romans 12:2, that do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And so that was really good. But then God threw something on me to change that up the week before, which I hate it when he does that because I have my plans, and it was all good. But God took me back into Exodus chapter 14, with the Israelites when they got to the Red Sea, and, that whole dialogue between God and Moses and the people. And they said, why did you lead us here to die? Wasn't there enough graves? And Moses says, just be still.
Yeah. And
watch the salvation of the Lord he'll provide for you this day. And I love it because God says, this is the Bubba version, stupid. What do you cry to me for? Move forward.
Yeah.
And so there's a tension there of when do we be still and when do we move forward? And I think I think the premise of that entire story is that God had already accomplished some amazing things. He had showed them direction. He'd given them proof. And I just based it down to this, is that the first thing we're called to do when we're in those times of pressure is he tells us just to remember. They should have remembered those miracles. Man, they were there for a reason.
Yeah, I've said that before. That I think one of the most powerful tools a Christian has in their spiritual formation is just remembering.
That's right. And that's once again, our minds, our minds. And so then the next thing he says, be still. And it literally means just to rest. And sometimes we can't rest because we're so busy trying to figure out how we're going to get out of this. Nowhere in that text does it say Moses told him to go cut down some trees and build rafts.
Yeah.
Start making spears. He said, rest, be still. And then the next thing was to just respond, and the response was move forward. Based on the fact that you have already remembered how good God is, you've rested in that, you trust in that, and now you're moving forward on those two principles. And that was really good. And then we led into, week 2, looking at how Satan does attack, how he comes in. And my goal was to really get to the last 2 weeks, how Satan attacks the marriage, then how he attacks our children. And once again, everything goes back to the mind. And at the moment, I didn't realize, God was working on this in this Exodus 14 about how that's the answer to all these pressures. If we will just do those 3 things, just remember, just rest, and then respond.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We're instant people. If a photo doesn't download on our phone in a half a second, we get upset.
I know somebody, I heard a guy talk about one time that he was on a flight next to somebody, and the guy found out, this was like when on-flight Wi-Fi was like first coming a thing that he could get on-flight Wi-Fi. So he did it and he got it. Then he started getting mad because it wasn't loading fast enough. And he's like, brother, you didn't know this existed 15 minutes ago, and now you're mad it's not fast enough for you.
That's the nature of our humanism. But the last week, when we talked about families, God just really hammered on me of how he built a fence. You go to Genesis 2, when he built the family, he laid something out. It's the first covenant that we see, the covenant of marriage. And there was a responsibility with that. So I really hit big on the power of we as men, we as parents, we've got to walk the fences. Yeah. Whether a storm comes and breaks it down, whether there's a weak spot, because all Satan needs is that little crack to get into your family.
I think it's funny that when you talk to people about church and, the church is not necessarily God's primary building block in the world. And what I mean by that is you look at scripture, God created the family long before he created the church.
That's right.
God was using the family long before he was using the church. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the church. We as pastors given our lives to the church. This is the bride of Jesus. And yet the family is God's primary building block for his kingdom in this world. It's the primary means by which he shapes us and transforms us. And so why wouldn't Satan try to attack?
And we have just become very, very complacent to that. And it goes back to why have we become complacent to that? Because we're so busy, because our minds have been conformed to the world or the flesh. And we've just got to get back to those basics of the priorities that he has for leaders in the home. Mom and dad. It's not the church's job to raise kids. It's not the government's job to raise kids. That's mom and dad's job.
Oh, yeah. It's like, send your kids to church. And in the 45 minutes that we have to teach them,
transform their lives.
We are going to undo everything that the school system, the television, YouTube, and you have done in the last week. Just give us 45 minutes. We got this.
Yeah.
No, I think that's good. And speaking of, children and growing up, can I tell you, 5 16-year-old boys can eat a lot. That's one of the things we did this summer was take Haddon just turned 16 this past week. And so we took a trip down to the lake with him and some of his buddies. That was his big birthday present where they got to tube and everything. And Leanne and I, we have Haddon and Chasen, 16, 12, and we thought we knew what teenage boys could do when they ate. Brother, we had 10 pounds of pancake mix, not pancakes, pancake mix. I think we cooked 12 pounds of hamburger meat between tacos and hamburgers and we stayed 3 days. This wasn't forever. So
not only are they teenagers, they've been on the water all day.
That's right.
You know how that water appetite is.
There is something about being on the water all day and come back in. And I'm telling you, them tacos hit that first day on the water.
Tacos and air conditioning.
Air conditioning. Look, I will go to my grave saying there is no hot like Central Florida hot.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. When you get in there and, you ain't got no coastal breeze. Right. It is just hot. So anyway, I don't know what you just said that made me think about that, talking about families and growing, but I was just thinking,
kids.
I'm glad I don't have 5 kids. Speaking of having a bunch of kids, Matt, what'd you guys talk about in Live Oak this week?
So July was up to us. So honestly, I just found the most views on YouTube and I said, hey, I need
good call.
Hey, I'm getting these 3 Sundays off. No, we did a series. The series was titled Just As He Said. Not to repreach the whole thing. Here's the premise.
So just as he said, talking about, Dr. Phil, Joe B. Martin, just as who said?
Just as God said in Genesis to be fruitful and multiply.
Just as God said.
Just kidding. No, it's built on a phrase. That's not exactly how Luke words it. That's my translation of it. But Luke specifically uses this phrase twice in his gospel, that Jesus gives instructions, various instructions, different situations to two disciples. And Luke is the only one who tells us this both times, that in these instructions, that when the disciples go and do as Jesus said, they found it just as he had told them.
Yeah.
And so my translation of that is just as he said. And so really the entire series is about that we can trust Jesus in everything, from the smallest of life's details to the biggest of life's moments. I shared this yesterday in Lake City because I had the privilege to come over here in Lake City and to preach kind of like the whole series in one, to pare it down.
Like, did you do like the first week in first service, second week in the second
Yeah,
service?
so if you were there for all three services, you got the whole thing. No, just kind of combined it all. But really, truly, I want to be very specific when I say that we can trust Jesus in everything, because I think that's Luke's point. He's obviously inspired by the Holy Spirit, but he is showing us that we can trust Jesus. I grew up in the church. I know you guys grew up in the church. And, when you grow up in the church, you hear a lot of things about what you should do and that you should trust Jesus. And 100% yes, because he is the only way that we can be saved, forgiven of our sins, righteous in God's eyes, all of those things. But I think the mentality is, I should do this, but I actually, if I'm being honest, I don't. And my point was, I think what Luke is trying to show us is that we can, so that we will.
Yeah.
Not that we should, and even though we secretly don't, we can say all the right things, sing all the words to the songs, and pretend like we do, is that no, Luke's point is even more than that, is that you can. You can trust Jesus in every situation, every season, every circumstance that you find yourself in. And so really that's the whole point. And I think Luke is showing us that. But it's not just that they obeyed Jesus and they found it just as he told them. It's also whenever Jesus told them this and they found it just as he said, what else did he say? Because if we can trust him in these things and it's been verified with our own eyes, oh my goodness, it's just as he said, then what about everything else that he said that maybe has not come to fruition yet? Mm-hmm. What about when he teaches on the kingdom of God? Well, you can trust that it will be just as he said, even though yet it's not, and you haven't seen that yet.
That's right.
And so that's really the whole series.
John Piper, had a sermon that turned into a book that's just become a big part of his ministry, where he talks about future grace. Mm-hmm. And what he talks about in that is that God's past faithfulness is what should fuel our faith in that same faithfulness for the future. So he talks about a past faith for future grace, and I think that's what you're talking about. When we look back and see what he has done, that lets us trust him more for what he will do.
Yeah. And I think it becomes really like a litmus test for us, because, the way I ended the series, and I ended it in Lake City, is Luke doesn't use that phrase, but he basically paints the picture of the resurrection and says, look, it's just as he said.
Yeah.
But they had a hard time seeing the empty tomb as he said, because of circumstances, emotions, all of the things that got in the way and clouded their vision of seeing clearly. Then afterwards, they finally see clearly and they're like, oh my goodness, the empty tomb is also just as he said.
Yeah.
But the way I ended the series was, if Jesus rose just as he said, then we can trust everything he ever said. And what that means is it should change the way that we read those red letters in our Bible. Now, it doesn't mean that the red letters matter more than the black letters, because it's all inspired by God, but it should change. Like, do we actually trust what Jesus said when he said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you? Because if we trust what Jesus said, we may not like it. We may not understand it. It may feel better to hold this grudge because you don't know what they did to me. But those letters in red are the same one who gave instructions to the disciples and they found it just as he said. So us being willing to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute you now becomes an exercise of whether we do or not trust Jesus in everything that he said.
So how then, Matt, do you answer someone who says, okay, well, I did trust Jesus. I did this that he said, this that he said, this that they said, and now this terrible thing has happened in my life?
So I think it depends on what that thing is. But the first thing I would say is that we trust everything Jesus has said. And so one of the things that I said was, this should make us fall in love with God's word, because if you want to know for sure what Jesus has said, God has graciously revealed that to us and allowed us to hold this in our hands in the Bible. Right. And so the first thing I would say is let's make sure that's something that Jesus said and not just something that you were secretly, fingers crossed, hoping that Jesus said. Right. And so you just kind of did it and said, well, God, I'm hoping for this. So I'm just going to trust that you're going to do it, even though it's not a promise that you made or something that you said. But I think also it just boils down to, even though we find ourselves in certain seasons and situations and circumstances, those things still, and this is the part of trust, those things still do not negate everything that Jesus has said. Paul tells us in Romans 8 that he is working all things together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. It does not mean that every single thing that happens to you in your life is going to be good and fun and enjoyable.
That's right.
And yet there's a trust factor. And I think that is the point, is do we trust that somehow, some way, whatever I'm going through, walking through, no matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult, no matter how confused it is, no matter what kind of emotions I'm feeling in this moment, these situations and circumstances do not invalidate the word of God. And I think that is part of the tension that we have to hold. And I think that's exactly what happened in the resurrection. In the resurrection, like these ladies showed up, there's obviously a grieving process. They come, and Luke tells us they showed up early in the morning carrying burial spices because they expected to find the body of Jesus. And they walk into an empty tomb, and Luke tells us they are perplexed. And yet when the angel shows up, he says, remember what he said to you, that he must be betrayed.
That's right.
He will be crucified, and he will rise on the third day. They had seen him betrayed, just as he said. They had seen him crucified, just as he said. The circumstances in their life, combated with the emotions they were feeling, somehow prevented them from seeing the empty tomb was just as he said.
God's purposes are working towards the end, but the individual circumstances may be difficult, and I'll be a little transparent on the show here. I have a small penchant for Southern gospel music at times. And one of the songs, as you're talking about that came to my mind is the Crab Family, the song Through the Fire, you know what I'm talking about? Where it says, he never promised the cross would not get heavy and the hill would not be hard to climb. He never offered victories without fighting, but he said help would always come in time.
I can hear the harmony.
Can't you? But I mean, I think that's the point. Like, just because he said this would happen, he never said this wouldn't. You know?
And so here's the tension, though, is that where it becomes a matter of, do we actually trust Jesus in everything that he said? Is Jesus preparing the disciples in John, right? This whole last really evening of Jesus' life, like it begins in John 13 and it spans the course of several chapters in John that he dedicates just to this one evening. And Jesus says in John chapter 16, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. I mean, like that's also part of what he said. And so when we trust Jesus, it's the totality of what he said. He never said that you're not going to face trials. He never said your life is going to be sunshine and rainbows. He never said those things. And so it's a matter of, do we trust him? And even when we walk through hard things, he has promised to walk with those things with us.
That's right. I think sometimes we just assume a second half of those promises and they're not there, because you know what happens when you assume. You're often wrong. And so I think that's the thing. All right. Well, let's do this. Let's kind of wind it down a little bit. And so I'm going to ask you a question, both of you. I want you to give me two things that you're looking forward to this fall. One of them in church world and one of them outside of church world. So give me two things that you're looking forward to this fall.
I'll go first. I already said one of them, and that is school starting back, and I'm dropping my kids off at the same time every day of the week. For those listening at home, if you don't know, my wife and I, we have 4 kids, which is already...
I'm just kidding.
That's already chaos enough. But what you may not know is that one of them is 1 year old and the other is 3 months old. And so that is like chaos multiplied. So our youngest daughter, the 3-month-old, she was born Easter Sunday in April. And so really and truly, it's a good thing that summers are a little bit more laid back and we don't have as many meetings and things, because, and if you're a parent, you know this, whether you've forgotten it or not, is having a newborn at home is a full-time job, much less having a newborn and then 3 others who are still dependent on you and tugging at you and calling on you all the time. And honestly, this summer, trying to just get stuff done, be productive, my wife as well, even as simple as like, I need to sit down at my computer and send an email and just kind of like focus for 15 minutes. But it can be very difficult when you have a newborn who's crying or needs a bottle or needs to be changed on stuff. And so honestly, I love my kids. Please don't hear me wrong. I love my kids. But I am looking forward to school rhythms, routines. Everybody's going to be at the babysitter or school, childcare. And really, it's just like, I feel like my wife and I are just going to be able to just get some stuff done that we haven't had a lot of time to do. So
That's good.
That probably sounds selfish, but I'm just being transparent.
I'm not judging. We listen and we don't judge.
Yeah, thank you for that. Church-wide, man, there's just some things that are coming up, just some changes across the board. Chip kind of hinted at some of that stuff. I'm just really excited. I feel like we're ready to kind of like press the gas. Some of that's just the summer coming off of that, the excitement of the fall. And then just some of that is just conversations that we have as a staff and just things that we're looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the fall, what God's going to continue to do. Man, he's just been so gracious to us at all of our locations. And I'm excited to see everybody and just kind of, let everybody be back in services and see and shake hands and just see people interacting and living in community. We took the month of July off from group night in Live Oak. And honestly, the people who attended that regularly, like they have voiced, man, I'm really missing it. I didn't think I'd miss it like this. I'm really excited about kicking group night back off. I could tell you stories I've heard over the last few weeks of how group night has legitimately impacted people's lives living in community, people who walk through things that they didn't foresee coming, and how people at group night have reached out to them to encourage them, to pray for them, to check in on them, to visit them in the hospital, just all kinds of stuff. And so
that's good.
I'm just excited about the fall, everything coming up.
But mostly the kids going back to school.
Yeah,
I got you.
51%.
What about you, Robert? One thing in church world, one thing outside of church world.
I think for church, to me, it's what God's been setting up for quite some time. And I think we're right there, and that is seeing the men of our church take seriously their leadership responsibilities and their families. We're seeing the edge of that. And to watch that come to fruition, man, it's going to be good. I'm excited in church life. You said one thing, but I believe that's going to lead into leadership for where God's taking us.
Yeah.
Not just Branford location, but the entire orchard.
Yeah.
God's doing some cool stuff there. Real quick from my family, I'm going to say this with a lot of vulnerability. My kids, Walker has been in South Dakota training dogs.
Yep.
Rayleigh has been like on vacation at volleyball camp and church camp and friends out. She's been gone. So Donnell and I are scratching our heads, okay, what's going on here? And we're about to be empty nesters pretty soon. But I'll be glad to get Walker back. He's my buddy.
Yeah.
I miss my boy. But just family, and as you said, Matt, just getting into routine. I'm with you on that. I like routine, give me the schedule so I can work things out in advance and take a deep breath. But just a routine, spending time in study. I'm that guy that when my wife's there, I want to attend to her, and I love her. I love her to be there every moment. But, I have a job to do, I have ministry to do, and I'm looking forward to that consistency.
Well, I have to say how utterly disappointed I am that I did not get hunting season or football season from either one of
you. Too hot.
I can answer that. Football season, I'm an FSU fan, so it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
I'm looking forward to fantasy football. How's that?
I'll take that.
And then, I can't even think about hunting season because it's 900 degrees outside.
So I'll tell you, my church thing I'm looking forward to is I am looking forward to O-Day. Now, I know that's not like big, super spiritual, but I love O-Day. I love the baptisms at O-Day. And honestly, my youngest, Chasen, is getting baptized at O-Day. So we're excited about that. That's going to be a lot of fun. By the time you're listening to this, it is too late to pre-register for O-Day, but you are still welcome to come. You just won't be able to get one of the free t-shirts that we had to go ahead and put in the order for, but you can still come. That's going to be August the 15th, the Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Camp Anderson Anchored. So still come hang out with us. You just won't be able to pre-register. And then I think the thing outside of church world that I'm looking forward to this fall is it's going to be my first season in my coaching life, transition away from football or baseball to being a golf coach for a season. And so
we see what you did there.
I'm kind of interested what that's going to be.
Yeah. Do you get to play for free?
I mean,
do you get to show the kids that you're coaching?
Demonstrate for free.
Yeah.
Gosh, Matt.
Man, you would think after this Sunday that you were going to be doing the bass fishing team somewhere.
Hey, you know what? I threw it down in Branford. I just let everybody know that, Robert may be better looking than me, but I'm a better fisherman than him. And, if we have to cancel a meeting one day so that we can go prove it and Matt can verify, what's going to happen?
Yeah, let's do it.
You just got to do what you got to do,
That's right.
No, well, guys, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun catching up. We are going to be diving back in next week with a brand new series, NIL, and kind of starting to fall off. And so I'm excited about that. But we'll catch you right back here next week on Let's Talk About That.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have more questions, thoughts, or feedback, we want to hear from you. Be sure to reach out to us through our social media or visit our website to stay connected. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Until next time, we hope that this episode inspired you and will keep Sunday's message at the front of your mind. See you next week.